everybody, and welcome back to Ask the Unfaithful. It's still hot here in Austin, Texas. I'm guessing it's still hot there in Florida, right, James?
Surely is. It ain't winter.
And it's not going to be for a while here in Austin, Texas. Probably about November, Thanksgiving, it'll cool down to a balmy 80.
Right. Yes. So how are you, Sam?
I'm doing great. It's been a great week. It's been a long week, but this is one of the highlights of my week. And you guys are always either coming out of an intensive or going into an intensive, right?
We have actually just finished two intensives in a row, so 15 days. Yeah, man.
Good Lord. You need a vacation. You and Sharon need to go out of town.
We are actually having a staycation next week. Now we have this 4-month-old Great Dane puppy, so we can't really go anywhere.
Well, I'm glad that you're not having babies anymore, but you're having Great Dane puppies. And you know what? It's fantastic. And it's definitely cheaper because you don't have to put those puppies through college, right? Maybe obedience school, potty training, but not college.
That is so true.
Today, we're going to talk about something that is monstrously important. And I was an expert at this. I happen to believe you were pretty good at this as well. And we'll talk about some of our stories. But today we're talking about 10 reasons why the unfaithful self-sabotage. So before we get into the reasons why, James, talk a little bit about self-sabotage. What is it? What does it look like? All that fun stuff.
So instead of jargon right off the bat, I'm just going to say it's shooting yourself in the foot. It's cutting your nose off to spite your face, right? Self-sabotage is anything you do that hinders your own progress. It's sort of reactively, this is big language, reactively subverting yourself, right? Meaning your inner self, your process and your progress towards health, otherwise known as recovery.
We just get in our own way, right? We just sometimes just can't get out of our own way.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever put shoes on and gotten up and your laces aren't tied and you step on one of the shoes as you're trying
Yeah.
to move forward? It's exactly like that.
I've
So
gotten in my own way in recovery work time and time and time again.
it's um, it's because we just don't know ourselves well. We don't know where we're self-sabotaging a lot of the time. And then other times it's going to be pretty obvious where we're doing it because we can point at it and go, oh, that's resistance. I'm resisting that. I don't want to do that. And that's self-sabotage. Let's say that my rule, which I've talked about before, if I didn't want to go to a meeting, that's when I knew I had to go to that meeting, right?
I love that.
Yeah, so that's when I went. Now, if I had decided, oh, you know what, I'm not going to go. I really don't want to go, and then so I didn't. Now I've self-sabotaged because now I've not only missed. I'm going to feel bad about it. I'm going to feel perhaps some shame about it, and I've missed whatever was going to be said in that meeting that probably, and I'm saying probably, would have helped me.
So I love that. Now, how do we do it? How do we self-sabotage? Because some people might have some confusion around how are we exactly self-sabotaging our recovery?
So we give ourselves messages, right? Negative messages like it's too hard, this is too difficult, I can't do it, I'm not capable of this. Um, and we can also say, well, everybody's controlling me, my sponsor's controlling me, my therapist's telling me what to do, my partner's telling me what to do. So they're taking my choices and my freedom away. They keep threatening me with all these consequences if I don't do this. So I don't really have any choice in this. Then we can get into kind of degrading ourselves, demeaning ourselves with negative self-talk. I can't do this because I'm too stupid. I'm not good enough. That just tells us we're not worth the trouble and we don't deserve the help. And so we just give up.
We just like to make ourselves a victim, don't we?
We do. So things like this isn't fair. We talk about minimizing a lot, but man, we minimize to ourselves so much. So minimizing it really isn't the big deal everyone else is making it out to be. I'm fine. You know what fine means in Narcotics Anonymous?
Ooh, no, I can't wait to hear this.
Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Well, that definitely is a great an acronym, not just for Narcotics Anonymous, that's for sure.
Even my 86-year-old mother uses it.
Oh, we love mom.
Yeah.
Isn't it also that we just think that we can just snap our fingers and everything's going to get better? If we can just somehow have this three-step process, right? If you'll just do these three things and everything will get better.
Yeah. So yeah, a magical cure, right? Oh, I'll go to treatment or I'll go to this therapist and bing, I'm going to get hit with
Two
the next
sessions.
one. How
Two
many?
sessions.
Yeah, 2 sessions. Man,
Yep.
if I could do that, wouldn't you? If you could do that, man, we would be out of a career, but I would love to be able to do that for everybody with this issue because then,
Yes.
everybody's going to be able to heal so much faster. I,
So just
uh,
snap of the fingers, like the old school movie in the Matrix where he gets plugged in the back of his head and says, I know a language or this or that. Man, if we could just do a recovery boot into the back of the head that just says, oh, I know now. Doesn't work that way.
right. We talked about reality a few episodes ago, and really it is kind of the red pill or the blue pill, right? Your
Yeah.
choice, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
So, that that magical cure is like not giving it the time, not giving the process the time to work and for us to really get it and have it take hold, expecting it to happen without putting that work in, right? We can also just not try. This is really common, man. This is common throughout anything people try to change. Really, it's rooted really in the fear of failure. So if we fail at something, we're so afraid of it because if we fail at it, we're going to prove every shameful thing about ourselves we've ever been told or believe about ourselves. And that's a huge fear because that's just confirming to ourselves and everybody else. And it isn't true, but it sure feels that way. We take it that way.
Absolutely. And then don't we also get afraid of letting go of certain people in our life because they've been friends or they've been close to us and we think, no, I can still keep the same friends even though those friends were supporting, applauding, or encouraging even my addiction or infidelity, right?
Yeah. So if you think about it, they're really not friends, right? They're toxic. We like them because we get along with them and they support us and say yes to things and say, yeah, man, that's right. Right. And we feel really good about that. But it's really, they're toxic because they're not interested in what's best for us, especially when it disrupts what they like to do and the idea of all of this freedom that they want to keep or that they can keep doing stuff that we used to do. Right. So they're toxic. There are places we can no longer go. There are situations, there are things we can no longer do because they're just gonna trigger us and ignite us down into that flame of doing this stuff again. So we have to. That is one of the ways that we do this. Self-sabotage, romancing the highs. Make no mistake. I don't care if you're an addict, a compulsive, or not. You're getting high because that's the way the brain works. It's a
Mm.
huge dopamine release. Did you know that when somebody takes heroin, the heroin isn't making them high? The heroin is hitting the receptors in their brain, right? And that's what gets them high because the brain then releases the hormones that get them high. So I
Right.
once had a young addict who took Special K, and she said, she got so mad because she said, my own brain is getting me high. You mean I didn't
Mm.
have to take that stuff? I'm like, yeah, yeah, try surfing, man.
Yep.
All right. So, that's a big one, that engaging with toxic people, places and things. Uh,
And bad time management, right? Just
oh, yeah. I'm still bad at time management. Right? But if we use our time poorly, it's a finite resource. So, if we're using it poorly, if we're not focusing on what we need to do in recovery, it's going to prolong the pain. It's going to prevent and postpone growth, right? So we have to be kind of efficient. And frankly, we don't know. right? What we should be doing. I mean, there's so much information out there. That's why we need some guidance with it. You know, whether it's professional guidance or whether it's a sponsor or mentor who's been through this, whatever that is. And I know I keep harping on that, but I couldn't have done, I wouldn't be here talking to you had I not had that help.
Well, and there's a point where you just have to realize it. We say this in sports all the time. You know what? Focus on yourself. Stop focusing on other people, what they're doing. This person, we get fixated on what our partner's doing or family members are doing. You know what? How about you spend time focusing just on you?
Yeah. I mean, if you're comparing, you're going to lose. Every time we comparison, I like to call it soul death, you know, because that doesn't give us any space for ourselves to
Mm,
actually learn and grow if we're always living in comparison. Oh, he's
yeah.
so much better at it. He pitches whatever, 0.3 miles an
Yeah.
hour faster than I do, or whatever that is, right? With me, it would be about 50 miles an hour faster than I do.
Isn't there a point too where we learn how to not believe that we are what we've done? That was a big deal for me, is that just believing I was a failure and that I was just an idiot and selfish and just so many other words, and I won't say them in the podcast.
Yeah, you know, we're really letting our past control our lives, control our present, control our future. Then, right? If we are always thinking I'm just that guy, and that's always, or that woman, that's always the way it's going to be, then there's no room for growth there. Right? There's no hope in that. So that's letting our past actions control what we're able to become in the future.
Yeah. It's also massive avoidance on our end because it keeps us from doing what we really should be doing in the first place.
Right. You know, avoidance, let's say it's simply avoidance about doing the tasks that we need to do, that we've been told, hey, this way works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? If we deprioritize them because we're avoiding them out of fear, whatever that is, we're not going to get them done. We'll concentrate on cleaning the house or whatever else can we can safely do before we actually prioritize those very difficult tasks. We avoid emotions. If we're trying, if look, man, if you are trying not to feel difficult emotions, you're not going to feel good ones either. You shut them
Right.
all. There's no selective shutting emotions down. You shut them all down.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and then what are you? You're just flat. Um, so we can't stuff them. We got to face them. Um, you know, there's a place where people really get stuck, and that's planning. And you
Yeah.
have to plan,
Constant
right?
planning.
Planning feels really good. This is what I'm going to do to get better. I'm going to plan, you know, when you plan it, we can get stuck in the planning phase because it feels so good. But planning is not doing. And eventually, as we do not get anything done because we keep planning, then we're going to get pretty shame filled and pretty down on ourselves for not actually doing something. We'll get stuck like you're stuck in the mud, and that's out of fear of actually putting into action. What if those plans don't work? You know, they're just like, if you're not putting them into action, they're just sitting there looking pretty, like the blueprints or an architectural drawing of a building without any construction going on.
Because eventually we also just get frustrated and want to give up, right?
Yeah, and the moment we give up, we're going to act out. That's
Yeah.
relapse. Right? It undermines everything. It'll blow our whole lives up. It'll blow our partners up. It'll blow the whole family up. Um, there are a bunch of other ways too that we self-sabotage. I'll just fly through a list here: procrastination, perfectionism, which delays us, right? Ignoring warning signs, busyness, lack of basic daily preparation and planning because that leads to chaos. All work and no healthy play. You know, if we give in to this idea or feeling that we don't deserve that kind of the healthy play, choosing misery, so pessimism versus trying to find optimism, and blame shifting. Those are some other ways that we self-sabotage.
I think we've covered so many of them that we talk about how, and I'm sure that there's unfaithful listening going, oh my gosh, I never saw it as self sabotage. I never saw it as maybe getting in my own way. I saw it as X, Y, and Z, but having an awareness to go, oh my gosh, this actually is self-sabotage. And then maybe the betrayeds might be going, yes, he or she does this. Yes, they have been doing this. Oh my gosh, I want them to listen to this. Well, this might be the real pinnacle of the moment as we talk about, as our title is 10 reasons why we self-sabotage. Because this is what we just talked about is monstrously important, but we have to get to the root. So let's go. We're going to be efficient and streamlined, but 10 reasons why we self sabotage.
Okay, so the first one is kind of a combo, but it's discontent, despair, and lack of faith in the process, right?
Mm.
So, we can get discontented. Why isn't this working yet? Despair, oh my God, this isn't working. And then this isn't going to work, right? So that it's the process though. So we have to, if we can go through those times and actually stick with the process, we will see that it works. So that's one of the reasons why we self-sabotage. That is actually self-sabotaging too. But what results from those is we're going to self-sabotage because we've run out of patience and desire at that point. Uh,
Absolutely. Number two.
Not believing we're capable, right? So look, it's hard. We've talked about this. It is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, right?
But we've done it.
Yeah.
And we've not always made the best choices in life. And we haven't come from royalty. We are two screw ups with a camera and microphones doing the best that we can. And if we can do it, holy cow, you guys, men and women from all over the world who listen to this podcast, you can do it as well.
That's absolutely right. And, if you've surrounded yourself with people who have done it, then you can have that faith and, and believe that you're capable of it because they were, then nothing makes them special. They were in the same place we are. I'm just because I have the, degrees and blah, blah, blah. I had that degree before I got recovery, right? So I was still acting out. I've always been quasi smart.
Listen, I appreciate your sentiments, but I'm special because I'm a special kind of screw up, quite honestly. So, all right, number three.
Okay. The fear that we can't, right? So that's where that stems from, that not believing we're capable, or precedes a chicken and egg, right? So that fear has to be, we just have to, sometimes you got to grab it by the horns and do it, right?
Yeah.
And if you have some people around you, they can help you with that. So next one, number four, is believing that recovery is just too complicated, man. This is just too much. Look, it is complicated, especially recovery from a process type of issue, right? And process meaning that we're kind of hooked to all this process before the actual action. That's what really hooks us in. And it's normal too in intimacy for there to be sex at some point. Not right now, please. You're just trying to get healthy, right? Some people watching are in that healthy space, but there's that complexity that goes with stuff like risk taking leads to gambling. Gambling can be a problem. Same kind of thing. It's not just, hey, here's alcohol, right? Which it isn't.
Right.
I can put that down, right? And I can't touch that. That's simple. We're talking about basic human interaction here, right? So it can feel really complicated, and there's a lot of nuance to it. But man, there are so many ways to do this, and you can be guided through it. So it isn't too complicated, but it can be overwhelming.
And we do not know it all. Again, two knuckleheads with microphones doing the best that we can. There's so many great therapists and coaches out there that are doing some phenomenal stuff. A client sent me a video the other day about dismissive avoidance, and oh my gosh, I was like, this woman is spot on. There's so many people doing such great work, but there's very few people that might come out and talk about being unfaithful. And so we just want this to be a safe place. So as we get to the midway point, what's number five?
So feeling trapped,
Mm.
caught, like you're in a catch 22 for those who are older and know what that means. But basically no way out, right? I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't kind of thing. It really isn't that. It feels like that, right? We just, we can get into that trapped space, but if we buy into it, man, we're gonna want to bust out and do our own thing. So, we can't sort of make our own program, right? We can't take our will back. Um, Next one would be, I don't deserve this, right? That's coming out of shame. I don't deserve to be healthy. Really? Because the people around you love you. And guess
Yeah.
what? They want you to be healthy. So we have to realize that, you know, that lack of deserving needs some attention, and that we need to do this regardless. And eventually, believe me, we get to the place where we know that we deserve this to recover.
Because we're human beings and we're capable of redemption, whether
Yeah,
we come from faith or not, we're capable of restoration. We are not people that need to be thrown into the scrap heap, but the choice is ours. Do we do the work, or do we just use it as, unfortunately, do we just let ourselves remain a victim for the rest of our life? So, I think we're on number 7 now. What's number 7?
we are on number 7, confusing shame and guilt.
Mm,
This actually is a matter of discernment that can take a while to really discern. So I'm going to say it in a very simple way, but believe me, it's going to take you some work to really be able to discern between shame and guilt. And you need to, because it's going to be problematic, because if you stay stuck in shame, which is the I am a piece of crap and I always
right.
will be, so I'm incapable, I'm inadequate, versus I did piece of crap behaviors. I did do all those things, right? So if we believe that I am, there is no hope, right? And we're going to lose all impetus to be able to do this work. So we have to learn that difference. The other thing about that staying stuck in shame is it disconnects us from everybody around us. So we have to be able to, I think I've said it before, if you're hitting the wall of shame, you can't go over it, can't go under it, you can't go around it, you have to go through it. Right. And that is really hard, because when you go through it, you're going to feel it more intensely. But if you've got somebody helping you through it and guiding you, you'll be all right. And then it will not be like an albatross around your neck
You
anymore.
can trust the process, because if you have the right people, most of the time you're going to have the right process. And while the process might look a little bit different for everybody, there's still going to be some trends and some nuances which we're talking about. So take us to number 8 on the reasons why we self-sabotage.
A need for control. We feel like everybody else is in control, or we're not. And the fact is, we're not. We're not in control. We can't control that part of us that was doing this, because it's being driven by much deeper things that we don't recognize yet. And so we need some semblance of that we're in control of our lives. Often that'll be, I'm quitting this and I'm going to do what I want, right? Except that it's this recovery that will give us the control over our lives. So when we make the choice, people think that, oh, if I surrender, it's saying I don't have control. No, you do have a control. When you surrender, you're actually taking on control, because at that point, you're saying, okay, I'm surrendering this part that I can't control, and I'm making a choice to do that. I'm making a choice to follow a process to get better. And that's a choice. And you keep making that choice. In my little video about the brain, right? Here's the old rutted road and here's the new pathway. Every
Right.
time we want to establish a new path, we've got to make that choice every single time until this is more established than this one, right? So that's what that's about. If you do this, you are taking control, because you are making the choice towards health instead of sickness.
Okay. Take us to number 9.
Exposure, this fear of being exposed, or like feeling like the real me is not okay in the world, right? If you knew who I was, you wouldn't want to be with me, you know.
Right.
Um, and that recovery itself is going to expose who you are. Guess what? It will. The problem with that is believing that who you are isn't good enough for the people around you. but they love you. You are already good enough at your depth, right? It's these behaviors that are not okay.
And I think that's such an important part for the unfaithful to hear is that, listen, you are still worthy of love. You are worthy of getting care. And you are worthy of maybe treatment or spending the time and the money to get healthy because other lives are depending upon your health. You're absolutely worth it. You absolutely deserve it, but nobody can do it for you. And it has to be done by you. So, end us with the 10th reason why we self sabotage.
We can't tolerate the anxiety um, of recovery because it's brand new ground, right? We don't know if the next step we're going to be up to our eyeballs in quicksand, right? The other way we know it really well, right? And so as horrible as it is, we can take that path really easily because and it feels it's familiar, right? But every new step we take into recovery, we don't know, is that step solid? Is it safe? Which again is why it's helpful to have people around us who can say, yeah, that's safe. That take that step there. Don't step over there. Right. Don't listen to that guy because that guy doesn't have your best interest in mind. Step there, right? And it's gonna be solid. So anxiety, sometimes we have to actually tolerate anxiety being there. And that's really hard because guess what? We've spent our lives trying to self-soothe, get out of anxiety. None of us like to feel that. But guess what? Here's the difference. We've got bad anxiety on one hand, we got good anxiety on the other. Bad anxiety is that stress, future tripping, worrying, etc. Right? Good anxiety is, oh, I'm learning something. I may not know what that next step is, but I'm going in the right direction. And it's really the feeling, though, in the body is the same. So we have to actually thoughtfully decide, oh, I'm anxious because I'm doing the right thing here. I'm doing what's right for
That's
me.
fascinating. That's fascinating. This is anxious to me because I'm doing the right thing, making good choices, finally going in the direction that I should go. And even though I'm feeling the same feeling, it's actually okay that I'm feeling this. This isn't a feeling I have to escape from or avoid or medicate. I can lean into this feeling because I've got the right people next to me walking me down this road, helping affirm that this is good anxiety and that I'm on the right track. So the next question is, okay, well, how do we stop self-sabotaging? Like, is these all of these kind of examples are pretty heavy hitting. Like it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I am self-sabotaging. Now, how do we stop it or how do we redirect that energy?
So we have to, it really is helpful to start to identify how we do it. So that list of how and even the list of why can help us identify for each person, right? Because we all self-sabotage in different ways. I think the lists are pretty complete. So you're going to be able to kind of look at those. I mean, I urge you to go back through, take notes, um, and just write them down as each point comes up and go, okay, which ones of these do I do and how do I do them? Um, so that's going to allow you to actually create a plan to respond differently than how you've reacted to those in the past, to self-sabotaging thoughts or reactions, right? And but it's going to take active work to change it. But if you can't even identify, right, if you don't do the step of identifying how you self-sabotage and where and with whom, okay, then you can't really do much about it, right?
Right. And if you can't have the humility to admit to the fact that you self-sabotage, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, that's a non-starter.
Because as much as I will make some jokes and talk about we're just two knuckleheads with microphones, the fact is we're pretty good at what we do. And sometimes I think we both have been in situations where we have had to ask ourselves, am I working harder than this client?
Mhm.
Am I it I feel there's some times where I'm like, I think I'm working harder than this guy or this woman is. And there's a point where We have to say, look, how bad do you want it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that happens to virtually any helper out there, right? Because we can, I know there were times I wanted to abdicate my own recovery to my sponsor, to my therapist,
Sure.
right? Have them do it for me,
Of
right?
course.
Now I relied heavily on my sponsor. There was a time when I wouldn't make a single, even buying a new shirt without talking to him, because as he put it, you have no idea why you're buying that shirt. Because of course I was a bodybuilder at the time. I had, you give a bodybuilder a shirt that's too big, he'll thank you. Give him one that's too small, he'll wear it. You know, and so I had bought all these shirts that were too small, right? And he's like, "Where'd you get that shirt?" I'm like, "I had to buy some new shirts." And he goes, "And you didn't ask me because you just triggered a bunch of people, right?" And that
Well,
means,
and I think you said it best earlier. It's taking our will back. The guy that says, or the woman that says, I can do that. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's kind of like, well, hold on. You didn't think your addiction was a big deal or your affair was a big deal. So maybe it's time to take a step back and rethink that a little bit, right?
yeah, that's the surrender. When he told me that, that, and then there was a time he caught me flirting, and I didn't think I was flirting, and he was like,
Mm,
"Flirt much?" Uh, you know, and so I had to address that. I knew then I have no clue what I'm doing. I really have no clue where I'm acting in ways that are harmful to me. That may not be acting out, although flirting, but wearing a
sure.
t-shirt, I had no idea. By the way, in that same speech, he said, "Hey, if you get a haircut, don't do it without asking me." Funny guy. Him with a nice,
Long time removed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so so we have to do something about it, right? And so if I give you an example of, let's say, avoidance is a big way to self-sabotage. I said, we deprioritize, or I use some kind of word that I made up earlier, right? And so now we have to actively prioritize the things that are hardest. That way, we're getting them done, and we're getting them done first, right? I always make a list of stuff I got to do at work, right? And I go, okay, which are the things I least want to do?
Mm,
And those are numbers, the top numbers, right? Because if I
yeah.
handle those, they're off my plate. They're not sitting there stressing me out anymore. They're also usually the most important. When in recovery, they're the most important things that we have to do.
And then there's times where I think maturity says I don't need to be intervened upon. I'll actually intervene in my own life, right? It's kind of like I'll be able to say, ooh, wait a minute. What's happening right now? And I can create my own intervention into the flooding or the mental gymnastics or the I'm on the road to self-sabotage and I start to go, uh-oh, how do I self-intervene? But there's things that we can do to do that, right?
Yeah, there are. So this is being proactive, right? And you can be taught these, you can come across them elsewhere. We have to be proactive in our recovery. Or, and I think that as a sponsor and as a therapist, when somebody says, "Hey, I had this idea that I want to look at. I'm having a problem with this. Can we look at that?" Right? Or, "This is what I'm thinking I could do about that." That's huge, because that
Yeah,
means that they are now working harder than we are, right? It means
right.
they're really interested in their own life now, in getting better. So some of these interventions, when we're in these self-sabotage, or in other things, is somatic. So when we're in sort of a trauma spiral, so this can go for betrayeds as well, right? When they're in their trauma spiral, when we as actors or unfaithfuls are in our own sort of family of origin thing, we can do somatic. So as an example of somatic interventions, you can do something called box breathing, which is basically like this. You can just use your finger on a piece of paper or draw it with a pen, and inhale, exhale, inhale,
Yeah.
exhale. So you just repeat that. Then there's, watch the watch. The Navy SEALs use this. Just watch your watch for 2 seconds, inhale, 2 seconds, exhale, 3 seconds, inhale, 3 seconds, exhale till you get to like 8 seconds. Another really, really good one is this, where you put your hand over your heart and your hand over your belly. And what that's doing is it's stimulating the paravagal system, or the parasympathetic nervous system, because the heart and the belly have the most number of neural bundles than, except for the brain and the body. And it sort of simulates or atavistically hits that mom's got a hold of me thing, because that's when
Yeah.
we're a baby, that's where we hold them. So it actually triggers that in our brain and calms us. So there's a number of things like that. That's just two of them. I urge everybody out there, try those, right? They're really, really effective. And frankly, the more you practice them, when you're in trouble, when you're spiraling out, the more effective they're going to be.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the next one, just slow down, man. Slow down. If you're going slower, it's going to give you a chance to engage your brain before you put your mouth into motion, because it's going to allow you to respond, right, rather than react. And then the
Yes.
last one's like an oldie but a goodie. It's a really old behavioral intervention, and that is, oh, I'm having all these negative thoughts. Okay, just say gently to yourself, because you're actually talking to a younger part of yourself. Stop. I am, and say the opposite of what your thought was, right? I'm such a screw up. I am very capable. I am enough. I'm adequate. I love myself, right? I
Yeah.
know that everybody goes, I'm so hippy dippy, man. Well, yeah, except that now neuroscience has caught up with hippy dippy and it actually works. So it's good.
Yes. Without a shadow of a doubt, being able to counteract it. There's tools that we can use, right, to be able to get into our brain before we just keep talking and talking and talking ourselves into more anxiety and stress and even flooding.
So, this bilateral, it really is like, okay, I'm not going to show you my big, massive biceps, but if I'm flexing this, my triceps loose, right? If I'm flexing my tricep, my biceps loose. The body works in opposites. The right side of the amygdala, when that's fired up, that's where we're in a panic and in trauma and in survival. So if I'm doing this, the right side fires. If I'm doing this, the left side fires. If the left side is fired, this is releasing. So if I'm
Mm,
just tapping, you can do it with your feet, anything, and that's gonna release you out of that trauma state.
it's great. I haven't really seen a lot of information on self-sabotage, but I know that I've done it. And I know that if I get away from my recovery, I'll do it again and again and again. And the good news is this might be hard for someone faithful to believe, but you can stop self-sabotaging. You can get your life back. And believe it or not, you can develop momentum that is on a trajectory of this nature. It doesn't have to be 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. It doesn't always have to be that way, right? We can develop momentum in recovery work that's not perfect and it's not linear, but we can actually get out of our own way and enjoy recovery work that has momentum to it. Am I wrong? Or, I mean, is that your experience?
Yeah, it's why we are where we are. It's gonna be, this, right? It's gonna be staggered. There's gonna be times when things are just slow, times when things are fast, times when things really suck, and times where things are brilliant, right? Awesome. And so we have to sort of be patient with that and know that even when things are sucking really badly, we're going to have that next aha and that next growth spurt. So, yes.
It's, I've got a couple of buddies who might be listening or watching right now, and there something to be said about for those of us who keep getting in our own way and we self-sabotage, there's something to be said about being able to sit with really uncomfortable feelings, really uncomfortable emotions, call it even misery early on in recovery. There's something brave and courageous about deciding to actually sit in those feelings and not medicate them away or escape them.
Right.
So it's absolutely normal to have to go through whether it be withdrawals or just massively difficult emotions and still be okay. Back me up on that because I know they're hearing it from me, but you speak to it too because that's kind of adulting at some point in life.
Yes, adulting. I have a t-shirt that says I don't want to adult today. Which is probably every day I feel like that, and then I do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, Jungians, so people who really follow Carl Jung's work, call it the tension of the opposites, right? So if I've got two opposites, I'm holding the tension between those until a third option comes to me. And someday we'll talk about that in greater depth. But if
Oh, that's just such a tease. You just tease the hell out of everybody. Just give us the quick. I'm on pins and needles going, well, what's the third option? Is it drugs? Is it alcohol?
no,
Is it get in
no,
a
oh
van
my
and run
God,
away?
no,
Well,
no,
now
it's
you got to say, see what I did there, everybody? Now I'm making him give us an answer. So what's the answer?
the healthy option. Okay, so think about two circles that overlap like a Venn diagram.
Right.
So I've got option A or option B. They're both, maybe they're both absolute choices. Maybe they're opposites. Maybe they're just, I don't want to do this one. I don't want to do this one. Right. But if I hold it long enough, that third one is going to come. So there's a piece of this that's actually faith-based. So it's back in Roman times, if you were Christian, it wasn't a really hip thing to be, right? Like you could be crucified and stuff for that, right? They're going to kill you, right? So when two travelers met on a road, one would take a stick or his toe and he would draw a circle in the sand, and the other traveler would, if they were Christian, would take a stick or their toe and draw another circle, and they would overlap. That's the thing that looks like a Venn diagram. What it means is, okay, here's human, and here's divine.
Hmm.
And if I'm going to do it with my fingers, but if you were to draw on that arc of that almond shape, and then just extend that a little bit down at the bottom, what do you get? The fish, right?
Hmm. Interesting.
That's where that came from. And then if you go like on a tour of medieval churches through Europe, you're going to see that on the cornerstone of every medieval church, that those two
Hmm.
overlapping. So the third option is really what was thought of in Christianity, early Christianity, as the divine option. That's
Hmm.
the message we get if we wait, if we don't know what to do, if we wait long enough, pray on it,
You
whatever.
just said it. You just said it. Wait long enough. I'd say it this way. Stay in the fight.
Mhm.
Stay in it long enough to find that option that might be the healthier option, or at least the healthy option, or the option that's not going to cause any more hurt, any more pain, any more damage to yourself or your loved ones. Thank you again for joining us on Ask the Unfaithful. James, it's always an honor. I carry a pen because I'm always writing notes while you're talking. I hope that the viewers and the listeners are taking notes and learning from just your hard work and labor to give to so many people. So if we can ever be of service, if we can point you in the right direction, you can reach out to us at asktheunfaithful@gmail.com. Please keep in mind, we don't do any counseling or coaching over email, but if you want help, by all means, reach out, get help somewhere because you're too valuable to not get help. Thanks for joining us.